Thank you very much, Lord Green. We have about 10 minutes or so for questions. Comments or questions would be welcome. Could the MC help me to locate the hands? The microphones are ready. Any comments, questions? No? Oh, yes, over there. Yes, microphone, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for a very good speech. A question for you. I mean, there is the notion that no great superpower can emerge without a hot conflict. And that's the old thing. It started, with the views that Sparta was a threat to Athens and that developed into war. Do you see that as well? I mean, will there be a hot conflict between China and the United States as China emerges, and the US cannot accept the fact that they're not the superpower in that sense?
I don't believe so. No, I don't. And actually, I think we should take a lot of real encouragement from this new initiative in Chinese thought that I've described. I think that very carefully worded phrase signals an intent to be a very constructive leading member of the international community. And this is not about seeking global superpower status. And I think that on the American side, they will get used to the notion that there are others on the world stage. Others have had to do that, including the British, for example. How that happens, not overnight and often not easily, but no, I don't think there's any reason to believe that this turns into a hot power, and we should certainly hope not.
Thank you.
At the head table?
Yes, Professor Chen here, Professor K.C. Chen.
Well, in fact, that was my question, about what China and US could do together. Because the world you describe, I think, is very real. And we saw in past European history how messy that can become. And of course, it's very difficult to see China and US working together. But is it possible that actually they see that, by in some way they have, work together in some way, they can actually, put to rest some of the potential tensions. Japan, for example, and India, for example. Is that possible?
Yes, I do think it's possible. And take one obvious example where the cooperation started well. I think it's got into a bit of difficulty latterly, but started very well and is of obvious interest to everybody, including both US and China, and that's climate change, where the cooperation in Paris at the time of the previous US administration produced a really rather positive and useful step forward on a matter which absolutely concerns us all. Sadly, the Trump administration has chosen to back from that. I take comfort in that area from the thought that a number of American states and businesses are nonetheless steaming ahead on the climate change agenda. But I think that's an example where you could expect a different American administration to take a very constructive role, and where China has definitely taken a leadership role.
Okay.
Can we have the next question, please?
Next question. Over there.
Oh. I was
Yes.
invited to to ask a question. Stephen, we see two development models in the world contrasting each other quite significantly. One, a capitalist democracy type of potent combination leading to globalization, leading to financial complexity, leading to misconduct in finance, causing quite a lot of problems in these sort of economies. On the other hand, we have the Chinese-style socialist market economy, which actually was doing quite well in the past 20 years. I mean, there was fast growth. In any case, I mean, the two severe financial crises that we saw in the last 2 decades, China coped with with them extremely well. Now, I mean, you have Wall Street running the U.S. Treasury on the one hand. You have a Chinese-style socialist market economy on the other hand being rather successful. Now, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I've been asking myself, shouldn't we join the Communist Party?
Well, as soon as I saw Joseph stand up, I thought, I'm in trouble. I spent many years making a pilgrimage to his office and paying my respects. And I think that I don't think the difference between the two is as complete as you imply by the way you phrased the question. And indeed, of course, the Chinese economy is not something separate from the global economy. They were clearly linked. There is no doubt that the Chinese authorities managed the passage through the last crisis in particular very well. I think many of China's friends would say it's still got some interesting rebalancing challenges in its economic system. And on the other hand, the more liberal market stroke democratic economies have had some painful lessons to learn, clearly. My guess is that as we move forwards, these are going to I don't know about the democracy side, that's a different point, but in terms of economic management, they're going to get to look more and more similar.
Okay, convergence. Huh? Maybe one more question. Yes. Okay, then one more and over there. Two more. Be generous. Okay, Janet, my student.
As you are a Londoner, allow me to zoom into Europe. You said that the European countries have yet to find a road. If we are to look into the crystal ball and guess what will be Europe like in 10 years, what would be the three few factors or the most important things? Would it be leadership? Would it be more Brexits? What will be the more important factors in determining Europe and European Union?
I think, for me, that's a very important question because I live there and I'm a European. So I think in 10 years' time, there's a pessimistic and an optimistic scenario. I think the optimistic scenario assumes that there is a continued German leadership of the European project and that the French are on their way to a real rejuvenation of the French economy and a more self-confident shared leadership role. And you've seen some signs of this partnership being rejuvenated in recent months since the arrival of the French President Macron. That's been thrown into a bit of doubt by the German disarray over forming a new government. I think they will get through that. My guess is that there will be another grand coalition and that therefore there will be a fair amount of continuity in German policy together with a stronger French shared leadership. And for the EU, this is good news. Also, of course, the EU is doing quite well economically at the moment. The Eurozone is performing quite nicely by its own standards, now better than Britain. Unemployment is beginning to decline from the very difficult levels that it's been at for the last decade. So I'm actually relatively optimistic about Europe. And no, I don't think there will be other Brexits. I don't think, I mean, the evidence has been for a long time that the British were more ambivalent about the European project than any other member. If anything, there will be some new members over the next 10 years because there are states down in the Balkans that will, in the course of time, naturally join the EU. So I think that's where I come down on. There are some risks to that, of course, but I think on the whole I'd be relatively optimistic.
Okay, the last question over there, is it?
For the students' table.
Yes, thank you very much for a brilliant speech. I'm a year 3 student, economics faculty of the University of Hong Kong. My question for you would be, it's undoubtedly that China's Belt and Road initiatives have changed the geopolitical context in the Southeast Asian countries or even the world. Hong Kong as an international financial center, what do you think our role would be in the world in the Belt and Road initiatives?
I think that's a very interesting question, and perhaps a good one. I'm glad that came up. You see, I think Hong Kong has got a crucial role to play in the Belt Road Initiative. This is, perhaps alongside Singapore, one of the two great international services bases for Asia. And because it's part of the PRC as a special administrative region, has an advantage in playing the role of the provider of financial and other kinds of professional services that will absolutely be necessary for the Belt and Road Initiative to gain real traction. I think it's the Asian Development Bank that produced this number of $1 trillion as the infrastructure bill for each of the next number of years in order to realise the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, getting to $1 trillion will be extremely difficult, and it's plainly not going to come from the supranational organisations, the multilateral lending organisations. Even the AIIB has a pipeline at the moment of, I think it's 2 or 3 billion. So in the context of the demand, it is inevitable that private capital from one source or another is going to have to play a role. And in order for it to play the role effectively, you're going to need very high quality professional, financial and other services to lever that capital in an effective way. Hong Kong's big advantage, apart from having a critical mass and a real ecosystem, is a legal system under which contracts will be able to be written in a way that is clearly strong in an international perspective. So I think Hong Kong's role is absolutely pivotal.
Thank you, everyone. That is the last question. Thank you, Lord Green and Professor Chen, for leading an insightful discussion.